Hey everyone, Miff here, and welcome back to my Completionist playthrough of Icewind Dale, done in a Purist style on insane difficulty. In this episode, we will continue our exploration of Easthaven, as we still have so much to do here. Not sure how much of it we will be able to accomplish today, but nevertheless, let's get to it. First, we have to definitively finish the subject of the unique Townsperson conversations. Last time, we ran out of commoners in the tavern. Then we went off to do other things, and I never got back to it, but there are two more things we have to showcase and discuss. Most importantly, the rude responses, especially the ones coming from the shorty races. And naturally here, Bray will be the perfect person to carry out that task in our case. So let's get to it immediately. Here's our victim. And of course, all of the non-human races have that kind of option where they choose to be offended and say something unpleasant. And for Bray, the role-playing justification might be that having been pestered about being a halfling for the second time already will make her lose her patience and snap a little bit. Maybe not necessarily giving this hairy ape line, but if we progress a little bit further, we can at least mock the notion some of these townspeople might have about all halflings in the area being related somehow. And when we say this, it will lead us to this conversation point, which is shared by all the short races. So whether we give our first rude response as a dwarf, gnome, or halfling, it will all end up here. All of the subsequent mean responses will give us a more generic verbal apology only, but this one will offer something more interesting, with the townsperson saying, "Simmer down there, little one, no harm meant. Look, you're new here, try some of the local catch. Knucklehead trout are our local delicacy." It's pretty funny to think that this person just happens to have this fish on hand and is like, "Here, take this." But when we accept this gift using this conversation option and then take our leave, we will indeed end up having a fish, or what's left of it, with Bray apparently must have already consumed the meat off of it. But we will still retain the precious scrimshaw, that valuable material we have heard so much about already, and this will sell for 25 gold here, or for 30 gold a little bit later. And this item can also be used to complete a local quest slightly quicker, but it's not really too relevant for that purpose. But this is yet another cool thing that we can obtain from those townsperson conversations, a little bit more monetary value. And here I'm heading to this warehouse because there's a named person we have to talk to there, as well as some townspeople. So continuing that rude response topic, it's kind of interesting that some of them have some slight requirements to even show up. For example, the dwarf one is only available before we talk to Hildreth, because once we know who she is, our response will be, "Hildreth and I being in Easthaven is just a coincidence." And this will not lead this townsperson to talk about Hildreth's beard, which is the catalyst to deliver that rude response for the dwarf. So we don't have it available here. And also, when it comes to the elves, what's interesting is that only 2 out of the 3 possible opening lines, oh, and we even got that, even gives us the option to respond in a rude way. I guess this opening line is a little bit more respectful, doesn't evoke that kind of feeling in an elf to respond in a mean way. I mean, I wouldn't have used that kind of line on Asathi. I would just show it on a screenshot anyway, because Asathi doesn't have that elven arrogance. She doesn't have that ego typical for the high elves, or the sun elves, or gold elves as they are known. And also, when it comes to the gnome, an interesting thing is that whenever you have a subsequent conversation with a townsperson as a gnome, you will get a slightly different kind of annoyed response coming from the gnome, being increasingly irritated at being taken for that fiddle bender person.
Here, I'll handle it.
And now the second thing I wanted to explore with these townsperson conversations is this whole extensive line of rumors that I figured, since we are completionists, we should exhaust that whole path. And fortunately, this will only require 1 townsperson. We will not have to find anyone new. And the reason we had to for all of those unique conversations was because, as you can see, whenever we speak to someone that we have already spoken to before, they will give us that "back again" line, which takes precedence over any unique opening based on race or class. But here, of course, the first time we asked about some rumors, we got that piece of information that the winter is unusually harsh this early in the season. But if we inquire more, we will get a lot more cool hints and insights from these townspeople. So the first one is about some goblins and even orcs being seen on the outskirts of town. We will be able to verify those rumors soon. Then the next one is about the wolf being in the area, trying to get into Absol's workshop, apparently sensing some bones to chew. We've already, of course, disposed of that problem. Then the other one is about a giant footprint in the snow in the vicinity, indicating the presence of giants, which would be quite concerning for the inhabitants of all of the 10 towns. Next up, we have a little bit more about the goblin and orc raids, and a theory about some of the caravans that haven't reached Easthaven, that normally should have, that it wasn't because of the heavy snows, but perhaps because of the goblin and orc attacks on those caravans. Then we have a rumor about a fellow called Jhonen, one of the steadiest fellows I know. Has been going around with some tune he keeps humming, and looks like he hasn't been getting much sleep. So this is another troublesome rumor about some kind of a reasonable guy being troubled in some way. Then we have a rumor about some sort of a blue-skinned figure appearing by the shore of the nearby lake, Lac Dinneshere. And it's taken for, tales of an imaginative child, but perhaps there is some truth to it that we will investigate. Then we also have a tale about Old Jed, apparently slipping into the clutches of the drink, using a Baldur's Gate 2 quote. Apparently to the point that even Grisella doesn't want to sell him any more alcohol. So we will check up on him as well. And then we are back at the weather rumor, circling back to the start. So now we have exhausted all of that, quite a few cool hints and rumors to investigate. And here we also have Jhonen, the manager of this warehouse. This is just kind of a bit of a background type of conversation, giving us a little bit more information about Easthaven and the life here. He manages the warehouse for the fishmonger Gaspar, whom we will meet probably in the next episode. And this conversation, concerns basically the fact that earning a living in Easthaven revolves around knucklehead trout in some way, either fishing or trading or being a scrimshander and working on its bones. And then he also suggests to visit the tavern if we want to hear more rumors. So that's all we can investigate here in this warehouse, and now we can kind of get back on track and resume our exploration of Easthaven itself. And now, having heard all of those rumors and being in good spirits after the success we've had with Absol and helping him, our aspiring adventurers will want to investigate all of those leads and check out if anyone else in Easthaven needs the services of our brave group. So we will go around town looking for more quests and opportunities, and we will split up for that purpose to cover more ground and then reconvene to engage in those adventures. So some of our guys will visit some homes to try to talk to the local populace a little bit more. Asathi and Iris will be most curious about that blue-skinned creature, and will also want to connect with nature a little bit more, gaze into the waters of Lac Dinneshere, so they will head straight for the shoreline. And then Rintar will be most concerned about that fellow Jhonen. And for logistics and role-playing reasons, we will do the talking with Rintar, but I will display on screenshots a cool intro to this conversation a bard can have. And you will see that this class steals the show in this quest in general. And as for Jhonen, we already passed by him earlier, and we remember he was acting a bit strange. Seems to be daydreaming and quite distracted. And he talks to us about some dreams that are troubling him as of late. Apparently so much so that he can barely catch a wink before they rouse him from it. A frustration it is at times. Sometimes it seems like they're more real than the waking world. So what about those dreams? Well, there's a woman, and don't give me that eye, it's not like you think. She walks upon the surface of the lake as if it were flagstones instead of waves. She doesn't say anything, just sings. Beautiful songs, but I can't understand a word. And there's no sense to it. These dreams are eating at me like a starving wolf. I can barely hold a daily thought in my head before the memory of the dreams hounds its way back in there. I don't know how much more of this I can take. So, a troublesome development, for sure. Something being so strong that it basically prevents him from living his life. But now that our other party members reach the lake, we will see indeed some kind of a mysterious, strange blue-skinned woman. And here Asathi will step up immediately, seeing potentially some kind of a kindred creature, because whenever we speak to this creature as an elf, we will have this unique conversation option, where apparently Asathi will notice some kind of resemblance, noticing her elven features, thinking that she might be some sort of a sea elf. However, we won't be able to communicate with her. She seems to just sing a soft, flowing song, like the sound of a great undersea current, but we have no idea why the song reminds you of that. But yes, if we try to communicate, she will not know how to respond, and we will just leave her be for now. But Iris, hearing that song, has an idea of how to perhaps better communicate with this creature. And now when we approach with the bard, before we even engage in the substance of this conversation, we can attempt to form a better understanding. And this is actually a really cool role-playing explanation of how we will be able to communicate with her in the first place. So hearing that song that she sings, the bard can respond with, "Perhaps I can answer your song with another, my lady." As you sing, the woman lends her voice to yours, creating an interweaving melody. To your surprise, you find you understand her song and what has brought her here. So through this peculiar form of communication, we will be able to understand what is her business here, basically. And we, of course, gain a complete bonus of 1200 experience, being able to communicate with this sea spirit in that way. So, of course, we immediately recognize that she must be the one that Jhonen spoke of. "You are the woman from his dreams, aren't you?" So she will confirm, and when we ask more about this, she will say, "I am of the calling Elysia of the Sky's Mirror. My heart is Jhonen's, but he cannot see me in the flesh, or else I will become as the currents upon the shore. A gift do I have for him, from one of his blood long ago, who also held my heart, but not as Jhonen holds it now." What sort of gift? "Many reflections of the moon have come and gone since the day in which the one of the blood of Jhonen fell beneath the waters of the lake. He fought the last of the great white serpents that swam upon the northern winds, the queen mother Ikasarat, who now lies without life on the bed of the lake. A promise was made, and I must honor it." So let us make note of that name, Ikasarat, apparently being the last white dragon seen in this region for generations. But what about that promise? "The one from whom Jhonen comes asked I see his blade returned to those of his blood if the queen serpent Ikasarat drank his life. She did, but not before he dealt her a mortal blow. From the depths of the lake I have brought the fire-shaped steel that ended her life. It is intended that it be belonging of Jhonen now." And normally when speaking to her with any other class, we would be able to just accept this quest here and to vow that we will take this sword to Jhonen and kind of see what happens next. But with a bard, this immediately goes further into a certain dialogue path, where the bard will want to exercise caution, of course being more knowledgeable about the lore, about various tales and legends of such creatures of the sea, being fickle and unpredictable, being able to relate her to some sort of a mermaid or siren, even though she seems to be some kind of a different, more unique creature than that. But just a note about sirens, I think they are usually chaotic neutral, and of course are known to lure men into their clutches, not necessarily for any good-natured reasons. And of course we still remember Shoal and that kiss of death from Baldur's Gate 1, so we are well in line here to, try to inquire more about this plight of hers. Yeah, she will say that it's one of the laws in the lands beneath the lake's mirror that she cannot show herself to Jhonen personally. And here's the bard response. Forgive me, Alicia of Disguise Mirror, but there are many tales of gifts that are more than they appear, perhaps even dangerous. Yes, we will share some concerns about Jhonen's safety, saying that her dreams are already hurting him, whether she means that or not. And of course, she will assure us that she only has the best of intentions, but, you know, in order to put more trust in her, we will need to still continue this conversation and try to get some better type of reassurance. We notice here that she seems to have a desperate heart, and a desperate heart does dangerous things. And we will be at an impasse here, not knowing how to proceed, but then the bard will have two ideas, and we can proceed through both of them. However, I will only use this option, and we will discuss that in a moment. But here, our bard says, "Words may not suffice to show me your intentions, but a song might. Teach me your song, Alicia, and I shall see to it that the blade you hold is carried safely to its rightful owner." She sings, and you feel the words rather than hear them. Images of the lake, the currents, and Alicia's watch over the skeletons of all those that lie beneath the waves, dragon and human, fill your vision. When her song ends, you feel yourself stunned for a moment. She is trustworthy, and she carries nothing but love in her heart for Jhonen. So yes, she will pluck at Iris's heartstrings with that song, and through it, we will know that Alicia's plight is true, and that her intent is pure and noble. Here, of course, we get another 1200 bonus experience that only the bard can get out of this conversation, confirming, that she has good intentions indeed. But, this will be enough for Iris. Of course, we will just accept the quest now. But we could also demand some kind of physical proof, some kind of material incentive to carry out that task. But this seems kind of cruel. We should already know enough to be able to put some trust in her, and just out of our own goodwill to be able to deliver that sword. And also it involves some kind of a painful experience for Alicia, where she will be able to create 5 special gems for us that would be able to sell in total for 75 gold here, or for 90 gold a little bit later. So yet another thing that we could get out of this conversation as a complete bonus as a bard. So a non-trivial amount of experience and gold. But it will be enough for us here to accept her request. And now we will have in our possession the shattered blade of Aihonen that lay in the breast of Ikasarat, the last of the white dragon matriarchs that ruled the spine of the world. It was wielded by Aihonen, a distant ancestor of Jhonen the fisherman in Easthaven. The sword has lain at the bottom of the lake for almost a century, waiting to be returned to one of its wielder's bloodline. And since for quests, our shared inventory is taken into account, so we don't have to have this sword in Rintar's possession specifically, we will be able to deliver it now. And kind of relate to Jhonen, the whole story. We have met some sort of sea spirit that apparently loves him and wants him to have some sort of a blade. This will be a little bit much for Jhonen. This will be slightly overwhelming. Also, I will point your attention to this conversation option. We will discuss it in a little bit, but this is kind of the evil option to resolve this quest. But of course, we will speak the truth about Alicia. You'll be quite surprised, of course, about all of these revelations. Yeah, it's a bit much to be laid upon a fisherman all at once. Well, I'd be honored to accept anything she wishes me to have. So we will deliver that blade. We get 1200 experience for progressing this quest. By the spine of the world, even shattered, this blade's a wonder. But no more dreams, you said. Well, I'll miss them, actually. Her songs, beautiful, simply beautiful. So this sounds a little bit bittersweet. But when we talk to Jhonen again, he will seem pretty happy being able to get back to his life and feel quite a bit of relief not being bothered every night by these dreams. And then finally we can also report to Alicia that we have indeed delivered the blade to Jhonen. Now it rests in the hands of Aihonen's descendant, and her promise is thus fulfilled. And we will get another 1200 experience. Of course, this seems like a shower of experience, but it's only because, half of it, the 2400, we were able to get simply because we had a bard that conducted this conversation and this whole quest line. And I think it's really, really cool. Bard adds just so much to this quest that already has a really cool fundamental premise, but, you know, it's just so much better doing it with a Bard. And of course, you can see how there are some classic inspirations being able to be noticed, I guess, in this quest, of a creature of the lake giving us a sword. Yeah, it's a kind of a classic legend being an influence here. But yes, of course, now her mission here is complete, and she will be able to disappear. Showing us also a glimpse of the different Icewind Dale spell animations that we will be able to see in our playthrough. A lot of them are really nice and cool looking. And she also, as a gift of gratitude, gives us a pearl that will sell for 100 gold here, or 120 a little bit later. So, 100 golderu. Quite a nice reward in terms of gold as well, not to mention all of the experience that we were able to get. So, a really cool quest, but now to discuss some of its possible outcomes. There are 3 main ones, with kind of a 4th one being in there as well. But of course, first off, there's the good way, which is what we've just accomplished. Then in the second outcome, you can simply drive Alicia away, kind of scare her away, and inform Jhonen she won't bother him anymore. And he actually pays you better in that one, giving you 3 scrimshaw, so 75 gold or 90 later on. And then there's the evil option, where you convince Jhonen to leave and give his earthly possessions to us, which is the same 3 scrimshaw and a dagger. That's all he has. However, that outcome ruins a certain follow-up I will discuss in a moment. And then, like I said, not really a 4th one, but there's also a specific sequence of dialogue options with both him and Alicia, where we can lie to both of them and squeeze the maximum amount of gold, because we don't actually give the blade to him, but can sell it for 25 gold here, or for 30 a little bit later on. And we get almost all of the experience that way, without negatively impacting anything in the long run. And I'll return to those details way later, once we actually encounter the follow-up to these events, because yes, even though it seems like a simple side quest, there is a major payoff for what we have done much later in the game. And in general, this is also a significant event in the storyline, especially in the context of the expansion. And finally, this is another one of those quests and events we can set in motion here in Easthaven that will have their follow-ups at a much later point. But anyway, now let's explore some of these buildings and take a look at all of the beautiful interiors that Icewind Dale has to offer. Most of them are unique and aren't used anywhere else. And this just shows you that kind of old school quality of the game with those really cool looking backdrops. But here also, Bray will notice a very enticing chest. And that temptation will prove too strong for her to resist. She will have to take a look of what's inside, and she will find a winter wolf pelt in great condition, apparently. And this one sells for 250 gold, pretty much anywhere you can sell it. So a very significant amount of gold for this early in the game. But we also need to take it as completionists, because in the prologue there are exactly 5 of such pelts available on our settings. Actually, insane difficulty is required for that, as we will elaborate when the time comes. But also 5 Winterwolf pelts is precisely the amount needed to craft a certain item. So whether you decide to cash in all of those Winterwolf pelts or use them for that crafting process, it's incredibly important to, of course, get them. And here you can see that this chest is kind of unique in the fact that it requires 2 separate interactions, one to open it up and the other one to reach inside to retrieve the contents. And this is, I don't know, something new that they were trying in Icewind Dale. There's a few of such containers early on, kind of in the prologue and in Chapter 1. Some of these will show up here and there. But that always reminds me of that conversation in the City of Caverns in Baldur's Gate 2 we've had with that spectator beholder that made that distinction very clear between the chest itself and what lies inside of it. So it's kind of a interesting notion to to think about. But anyway, and now we can visit some of these other houses. There will be some elements of the environments to inspect and another townsperson if we needed to have more conversations with them, but we are done with that kind of thing.
Is that all?
What? Very well.
And in this hut, it's really interesting because the walls are going to be covered with some sort of a runic inscription. This will all give us the same kind of description whenever we inspect the walls. Some kind of language that even Nadimastria, a scholar of the arcane, is unfamiliar with. But this is a very curious find, which might indicate some sort of evil influence already being present in Easthaven. And there are some theories about it that I will return to at a later point, once we uncover more of the plot and we can speculate about a few things. Not only this inscription on the walls, but a few other things that will add to the mysteriousness of some things that we can find in the game. But now, we've also heard about that fellow Old Jed, and we will want to pay a visit to his shack. We will try to block our nostrils from that stench of the drying fish being almost unbearable, but we will soldier through it and go inside. Now, Old Jed, we will conduct this conversation once again with Iris, because she has the specific attributes required to make it more interesting. But yes, Old Jed, we can use our sense of smell to already notice that, yes, he's been hitting the sauce lately. And Old Jed is an uncle to young Ned, whom we will meet in the expansion. And as you will see, the love for booze runs in the family. But here, of course, when we ask what's up with him being so sad, I guess, he will, of course, tell us again that Grisella cut him off and won't sell him any more booze. And, of course, he will claim that he needs his wine to properly fish. And here we basically have a few class-based responses that we can give him. For example, a paladin will have a differently worded way of refusing to help him, saying that alcohol is not a solution and that he should visit a local priest for some guidance. And a thief has a really funny suggestion for him to break one of the windows of the tavern at night and use a fishing rod to get some booze that way. But the two most important options are based on attributes, and they both require at least 16 intelligence, but then differ depending on charisma. So being intelligent enough gives the character an idea to try to instill the willingness in Old Jed to fight the addiction and quit that habit, but then the result hinges on the delivery of that message. And if we have less than 15 charisma, it will be a little bit different than this one, and he will not be made to see the errors of his ways. But a charismatic enough person with 15 or more charisma will be able to talk some sense into him and persuade him to stop this destructive behavior. And Iris indeed has precisely 16 intelligence and 15 charisma, just enough to be able to say this. The wine isn't really what you need. It is just a symbol of your lost youth and your failure to accomplish all that you wanted to in the short span of time that you have in this desolate wasteland, this Easthaven. The bottle is your prison, a cornucopia of sanguinary delight that represents all of your problems in this world. Seriously. I never really had it explained to me that way, matey. I suppose that does make sense, now that I think about it. In fact, that'd be the best advice I've had in a long time. Thank you, matey. Here's a little something for your help. So we can finish this quest successfully, getting another 1200 experience and 6 gold. So he's actually more generous than Grisella was. And of course, we cannot forget that we saved the enormous 2 gold by not having to buy the bottle of wine from Pomab in the first place. So our net gain is actually 8 gold. Here. Not much else is different about this quest. If we, bring him the bottle of wine, like I said, we would waste 2 gold, but everything else would be the same. But we can, of course, have a greater sense of satisfaction that we seem to have convinced him, maybe just for a short while, but he, seems to be willing to fight off that addiction. And now we are also members of the Eternal Brotherhood of Fishermen, the greatest of honors. And also, as a result of that experience we got, Iris was able to level up. Of course, bards and thieves level up really quickly, but of course Bray, as a multi-class, her experience is split between 2 classes, so she wasn't able to reach her level up yet, but Iris already is above the needed amount, to progress. And of course, leveling up in the game brings on some static improvements as well as rolling for additional hit points. And Iris, being a bard, rolls from a 1d6 range, so from 1 to 6 HP, and of course she doesn't have enough constitution to give her any bonuses there. So let's see if Timora will treat us kindly in that regard. Additional hit points gained, 1. All right. All right, so that's how we're going to play, huh, game? That's how it's going to be. All right. All right, 1 HP. Cool. We, of course, also gain that memorization slot, the spell memorization of level 1, and 10 additional lore, as well as 5 more pickpocketing skill that bards also increase by 5 each level up. So we can immediately use that one to memorize sleep, and once we rest, it will be available to cast. And now I think we will head over to Hrothgar's house, just as he asked us to. Of course, saying in that introductory conversation that he would have some business to discuss with us. So we will check that out and finally start our way, I guess, to explore the main storyline here in Easthaven. Here there's also another house with a spear having fallen off that rack, I guess. Spears only sell for 1 gold, and we don't want to deprive this household of likely the only means they would have to defend themselves against some dangers in the area. So let's leave them their spear. And here we have one more interior to inspect. Very nice visuals, but nothing more than that. And now, before we step through the doorway to Hrothgar's house, I will again be silent for a moment so that we can appreciate the really nice Hrothgar's musical theme with our full attention, as it deserves no less.
Got it. I'm listening right up. Here, agreed.
Alright, I don't want to be silent for so long, but this is just such a nice theme. Don't you just get the feeling that an adventure is about to start? That we are at the beginning of an epic quest? And it just speaks volumes about Hrothgar too. Like, that's how much of a hero he is. You know, he gets his own personal music track that plays only here in his house. He's, of course, a very good lad, and he totally deserves it. But also, in the meanwhile, I have inspected some of these trophies he has mounted on the wall. One of them being a trophy of a Minotaur. Well, pretty good, pretty decent opponent to have on there. But then the next one was that of an Illithid, which is quite a worthy trophy. That would be a fierce opponent for any human to be able to defeat. So it seems like Hrothgar in his past was quite a serious adventurer. And this seemingly empty spot is quite funny. When we inspect that, apparently there's a plaque beneath it saying that it's a head of an invisible stalker mounted up there. So that's pretty cool. And of course, as our party is about to talk to Hrothgar, Bray had to sneak away to the side to kind of check out what cool stuff Hrothgar might have lying around in his house. But we'll get to that in a moment. First, let's indeed speak with Hrothgar.
Well met, friend, and welcome to my home. Make yourselves comfortable, but try not to break anything. Many of these curiosities that you see lying about have sentimental value.
You have quite a collection here.
Oh, they're all remembrances of my adventuring days. Little trinkets and the like that I picked up here and there. More keepsakes than valuables, really. Leftovers from my days of fortune and glory.
And here, whatever we respond with, he has some pretty good info to share. Like, Rintar will not say this line about fortune and glory. Fortune and glory, kid. But then Hrothgar would respond with that, yes, he did get his share of valuable treasures, but he was always adventuring for something greater, or in service of greater values, which is a cool response by him. But I think we will say this, adventuring days, so you are retired then.
Semi-retired, actually. This region is still untamed and fraught with many dangers. I have had plenty of opportunities in the last few years to take up my sword and shield and do battle with those who threaten the safety of Easthaven and its neighbors.
Yeah, so apparently there's still much work to be done to protect the inhabitants of Easthaven and all of the 10 towns in general.
In fact, I am planning such an expedition right now. That is what I wanted to speak to you about.
And of course, this leads us to the main event, the main topic that we've heard quite a bit of rumors about already. What sort of expedition?
We've received word from Kaldahar, our neighbors to the south, that evil forces are stirring nearby in the spine of the World Mountains. I am organizing and leading a party from Easthaven south to Kaldahar Valley to investigate. You look to be capable enough. Perhaps you'd like to join us. What say you?
What sort of evil forces are we talking about?
I don't really know. The messenger wasn't too specific. I suppose if you want more details, you could ask old Everard over at the temple, but time's a-wasting.
Well, that doesn't sound too reasonable. What like a wise leader would say. It's like, well, I don't really know what we're up against, but who cares? Let's not waste time. Let's go, go, go. But anyway, we will not doubt Hrothgar's leadership skills.
We need to get this expedition moving before the snows seal off the pass to Kaldahar. So what's it going to be? Are you in or out?
Yes, apparently the time is of the essence. Sounds exciting. Count us in.
Excellent. Glad to have you on board. I plan to assemble the rest of the expedition and set out for Kaldahar within a few days. With storms brewing in the mountains, I'd rather we depart sooner. But there are matters that require my attention here about town.
What sort of matters? Perhaps we could help?
Actually, now that I think about it, maybe you can help. Pomab, the local shopkeeper, has recently expressed concern over the rapidly thinning stock of his store. He's been complaining that the regular caravan from Caer Dineval is long overdue, and that if they don't arrive soon, he's sure to be out of business. Now, normally I take Pomab's whining with a grain of salt, but with heavy snows on the way, it would be best to make sure that caravan makes it through.
So what is it you want us to do?
I want you to find that caravan. Leave town by way of the South Bridge and scout the hills west of Loch Dinnershire, between Easthaven and Caer Dineval. Caravans always stick close to the shoreline this time of year.
I love the way he says, Loch Dinnershire.
Once you find it, see the caravan safely to Easthaven. In the meantime, I'll assemble the rest of the expedition and make the final plans for our journey. Return here as quickly as you can. We must make for Kaldahar Pass while the weather is favorable. Good luck. Safe journey.
Very well, Hrothgar. Well, for just a second, because...
Oh, good. You've returned. What news of the caravan from Caer Dineval?
Just want to showcase this whenever we don't have any news about it yet.
Make haste. I spotted heavy clouds hanging over the mountains this morning. I suspect snow will fall in the passes earlier than normal this season.
Yes, this is, of course, one more indication of something fishy, let's say. Staying in the spirit of Easthaven, something fishy going on with the weather. All right, so we'll get on that. And as the party makes their conversation with Hrothgar and discusses the caravan and the upcoming expedition, Bray will take that time to open some locks in Hrothgar's house and check out what cool things he might have stashed here. So here again we have these containers that require 2 interactions. Here this is a really interesting note to take a look at. If you are reading this note, then obviously you are a thief come to rob me of my hard-won riches. Sorry to disappoint you. Did you really think I would keep my valuables in such an obvious and unguarded place? Consider this note a warning. It's like, let me warn you. I do not care much for those who would poke their nose where it doesn't belong, and anyone caught practicing thievery in the town of Easthaven shall answer to me. So quite a cool note by Hrothgar, kind of explaining why we can't get some, powerful loot right away at the beginning of the game in his house. But I do wonder, where does he keep his treasures then? I suppose we'll never know. We'll just leave that note there and close this chest. Nothing happened here, Hrothgar. Nothing to be concerned about. No thieves about here. And here I will take these arrows and this short bow for now. Bray won't be able to help herself this time, but I actually do have a dorky idea about this short bow. So we will hold on to it for now, but it will not last. But finally, Bray will have her main weapon. You can actually transfer these darts to Nadimastria. She will need them soon. And yes, now we will be ready to engage in some slightly more serious adventures. So we'll see about that in the next episode, but for now I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you next time.